Welcome to the newest episode of my complete Factorio tutorial series. Today I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about all the different types of belts. First, I will tell you in what situations you should use belts. After that, we will take a look at the different types and flavors. In the end, I will show you what balancers are. As you probably already know, belts are used to transport items around your factory. But there are also two other ways to achieve this: trains and logistic bots. Trains are better than belts once you need to transport items across a long distance. Mining outposts, for instance, are a prime example for when you should use trains to transport raw ores or smelted plates back to your base. Trains are easily scalable, belts are not. Once you laid down a set of somewhat planned out rails, you can just send another train onto the same track to easily increase throughput. With belts, you would need to lay down more belts, and that takes time. Once you want to use faster transport belts, you will also have to pay more per tile. With the much higher maximum throughput of one rail versus 2 lanes of belts, it really gets clear that building rails is also cheaper. On the other side of the spectrum, there are logistic bots. These are made for short-range item delivery. They have a significant cost and are only usable in the late game. Their massive advantage is easy to see once we compare the three methods. They don't need a transport way, only a roboport for charging and special chests for delivery of items. This makes them perfect for highly compacted factories, where every single tile of space is crucial. If you want to use them in high throughput scenarios, then I can't say anything against that. This is an area where they really excel, but be aware, many robots also equal lots of roboports for charging. Roboports are also fairly big, so this can be a problem you have to think about. In summary, you could say that belts are a nice middle ground. They can be a simple, low-cost solution to transport a decent amount of items over short to medium distances. They won't require any fuel, unlike trains which need to be fueled and robots which need electricity. You can use them to directly supply your factories for early to mid-game, and sometime in the late game you can switch some factories or smelting setups over to bots. Belts are obviously very important for a classic main bus base. Usually a belt-based main bus is the main thing this type of base will revolve around. A main bus is a collection of belts which will carry all the items your factory needs. Usually it carries iron, copper, steel and other raw resources. You will also want to use it to transport more expensive items you will often need, like circuits. A 2-tile space between individual groups of belts is crucial to allow for splitters and underground belts. There are 3 different types of belts in 3 different speed classes. You will start out with the ability to craft normal transport belts. These can transport up to 15 items per second on both sides of the belt combined. You can unlock the faster belts through research. The next one would be the fast transport belt, which doubles the speed to 30 items per second. The fastest belt is the express transport belt, which is 3 times the speed of the standard one at 45 items per second. Most players don't call them by their proper name, because that would take too long. Usually they are called by their color. So instead of express transport belts, most would just say blue belt. Those normal belts are all pretty cool, but they have limitations. You will often come across the problem that you want to split one belt into 2 belts or 2 into 1. For that reason there is a splitter, which will do just that. Splitters have 2 inputs and 2 outputs, and will always do their best to perfectly distribute the inputs to the outputs. You can also customize their behavior a little bit by prioritizing one input or output. You can also set an output filter for one of the sides. Splitters will always keep both sides of the belt like they are and won't mix anything up. You still really can't cross a belt with another belt. But wait, there are underground belts. Underground belts can bring a belt below the surface for a maximum distance that's defined by the level of underground belt you use. The standard yellow underground belts can go 4 tiles underground, red's underground 7 tiles far. If you need to go even further, you will have to use blue express undergrounds, as they allow for up to 9 tiles of underground transportation. Constructing an underground belt is also very simple. You get 2 underground belt items per crafting cycle. The first one is used to go underground and the second one to bring the belt up again. After you place the first one down, you will get a visualization of where the underground part will be. Construction of these is only possible in a straight, which you can also see when the visualization disappears once you try to build a curve. Multiple underground belts can cross each other at an angle. If you need multiple underground belts in the same direction on the same tile, then you have to use different types of underground belts. This is also called belt weaving or braiding. If you need more than one belt to transport your items, things can get messy. It's always best to balance your belts. This means that all belts transport the same amount of items. Belts can get unbalanced when the input for each belt is different, for example from mines or train stations, or when they get used differently. Unbalanced belts can be a problem when you try loading a train with them, as this can cause wagons to get filled up at different speeds, but the main place where you have unbalanced belts is probably your main bus. To solve these issues, you can use a belt balancer. A belt balancer does the same thing that a splitter does, just on a larger scale. A 4-to-4 balancer will take 4 input belts and will output 4 balanced belts. You can again have different numbers of inputs and output belts, which is useful if you need more belts to supply multiple production lanes, or you can combine multiple belts equally into less belts. Building balancers is a very complex thing, as they can become pretty large with higher numbers of belts. That's why many designs are not quite perfect to save space. I also never built a balancer myself. I'm always using a blueprint book full of balancers I found on the Factorio wiki, which I linked in this video's description. This one includes all combinations between 1 to 8 inputs and outputs. But how do you now balance the 2 sides of a belt? That's also not that complicated. Most of the time you will have one full and one empty side. This problem can be solved with a single splitter like this. If both sides carry items, this gets a little bit bigger, but it's still manageable, as you can see. That was already everything I have to tell you about this topic. If you still have questions, then feel free to ask them in the comments down below. If you learned something new, please leave a like and also subscribe so you don't miss out on any new videos and tutorials. Feedback is also always appreciated. Have a great time. See you all next time.